Welcome back to Inspiring Hope, the podcast of Catholic Charities of Omaha. I'm your host, Dave Vankat, Chief Community Engagement Officer for Catholic Charities. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Each day in our community, 911 dispatchers receive an average of 51 domestic violence-related calls for help, and still many more cases go unreported. For over 50 years, Catholic Charities of Omaha has operated the only dedicated domestic violence emergency shelter in all of Douglas County. In 2024 alone, we provided 4,725 nights of safety and support to survivors and their children in our shelter. In today's episode, you'll hear from someone who is a survivor of domestic violence, and she is now leading our shelter team to provide healing and hope to other survivors and their children. Joining me today is Payton, the Domestic Violence Services Program Director at Catholic Charities of Omaha. So Payton, thank you so much for being here with us today. You have a domestic violence history in your family.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that experience and what you have learned from that.
Absolutely. So growing up, I grew up in a house of domestic violence. When I was born, I was actually the product of my parents' second marriage. The first marriage ended due to infidelity. So their second marriage already started off on shaky grounds. When I think back to my childhood, a lot of the memories I have are screaming, being corralled indoors with red and blue lights flashing outside the window. I remember my brother, singing as loud as he could to drown out noises of my mother, being assaulted by my father. And it really all culminated. There was a situation where my father, he had fallen off our roof and sustained some pretty significant injuries and caught a staph infection while he was healing. And a combination of the medication and being, I believe, in a weakened state really made him lash out in ways that kind of upped the aggression compared to previously. And there was a situation where he had taken his cast and he'd assaulted my mother so badly she was hospitalized. And that was kind of her turning point. She decided at that point she wanted to get away, but there were a lot of barriers in her way. She had been a stay-at-home mom, so she had little job experience. One of the forms of power and control that abusers use is isolation. So she'd been isolated from friends, family members. But also one of the biggest things he used was the legal system against her. They had shared children, and laws vary by states. But oftentimes, if you share children, you cannot move out of state with those children without the permission of the other parent. And my dad made sure that he was not going to let us go anywhere.
How old were you at this time?
So when everything finally culminated, I was 5. We had moved out of our shared house into just a small rental. My grandparents, thankfully, had maintained what little contact my mom was allowed to have, and we're grateful that she was finally breaking away. So we were blessed in that she was able to help provide some of the financial assistance in getting us just a small house that we were able to live in, for a while. Unfortunately, moving out of the house did not stop the violence. Following that, there was harassment, stalking, and countless protection order violations. Eventually, it all came to a head. My father broke into our house. He beat my mom terribly. Again, she was hospitalized for over a week this time, but I was the only witness there. My elder brother was at a friend's house up the street, and this situation, combined with just the multitude of protection order violations, the history of police calls, finally caught the attention of a judge that we really need to do something. And so the lawyer in that situation determined it would be helpful if I were to go and I were to speak. So I ended up testifying against my father when I was 5 and speaking to the violence that I witnessed during the incident that landed her in the hospital that last time. And I don't remember much from the trial or anything like that, which now I understand is my brain trying to protect itself from the trauma. But I remember bits and pieces, telling the judge I was 5 and the shoes that I wore. And I'm not sure, again, what exactly I said, but it was compelling enough to where my dad was sent to prison for 3 years. And during that time, it gave us the ability to move out of state without his consent because he was in prison at that time.
And where were you at this time?
Right, so we were in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's where we had lived up for those first 5 years of my life. And then when we were able to flee, we fled here to Omaha, Nebraska.
And was there anybody that was able to assist your mom through this and you and your family?
So again, that's where we were so uniquely blessed in that my grandparents were able to assist with some of the financial pieces of getting us moved from Arkansas to Omaha. We weren't able to bring all of our belongings. I mean, getting a rental truck to be able to move all of that was significantly more expensive than we were, able to do. But we were lucky that we had that one support system to help us with the move out to Omaha and help us really get housing when we were here. My grandparents are real estate agents, so they were able to find us an affordable place. My mom was able to enroll in college. She got a degree. She started working IT for a while and then became a real estate agent herself. And she is now happily married, so as sad and as dark as the story begins, my mother is a true testament to the fact that there can be light at the end of the tunnel.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you and your brother and your mom navigate that, the trauma? And, you mentioned, I think, that you had some therapy. And how did that process work?
Yeah, so I would say the first big piece was working consistently through therapy. And that was on everyone's end, my mother, my brother, and myself. As a family unit, we had gone through a lot. So there were nights we would hear bangs and all of us would just immediately go into panic mode. So there was a bit of resetting. We had to figure out what our new norm as a family was. But I give so much credit to the intense therapy that we were able to go through and really kind of begin building our lives back.
That is an incredible story, and for someone so young to have lived through that and be able to now take the steps of what you've done here at Catholic Charities. We wanted to set the backdrop of your story because in this podcast, we try to help people understand a little bit of what it's like for those who are coming to us.
Absolutely.
You know that firsthand. Mm-hmm. So talk first about what does Catholic Charities do for domestic violence in our program, in our shelter?
So we have a fantastic program at Catholic Charities. Our domestic violence services are threefold. The first part is our 24/7 confidential emergency shelter. We operate a 90-day program, and we serve men, women, and children who are fleeing from domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Another part of our program is a housing program. So while they're in our shelter, we're helping connect them with different housing programs to help find housing that meets their income needs and things like that. And then we have a community reintegration program, which after our survivors are able to complete the 90 days, they find their own housing. We're then able to provide them with any household good that they need, shower curtains, towels, dishes, flatware, as well as inviting them back monthly for support groups. So we always kind of joke with our clients, we're not done with you after 90 days.
Yeah, and so Catholic Charities also has therapists that are available, and you talked about the importance of the therapy. So how do we integrate that into the domestic violence program?
So we're very unique in that we're an organization that has so many different helpful departments. We work very closely with the behavioral health department, and we actually have what's called Therapy Thursdays. So we have one of the licensed behavioral health therapists come over every Thursday and conduct sessions with whoever signs up throughout the day. In addition to the staple on Thursdays, we also have crisis counseling. If we have a situation that arises. Let's say an abuser calls one of our clients and really, really sparks and triggers a heavy emotional response. We can contact our behavioral health team and have someone come over and de-escalate the situation.
Now, you also talked about, you as a child. We have a child advocate as part of the staff there. How is that, like what you experienced as a child, enable you to better serve the children that come to us?
Right. So I have a very special relationship, obviously, with the program we're able to provide for the children. Thinking back to my personal experience, one of the defining features of my youth was just fear. I remember being constantly scared. So it was very important for me in the shelter to make sure that we had a child advocacy program that helps create a safe space for children to be reminded that they're children, and to really release the shackles of the fear they've become so accustomed to. And only by having a safe environment can they really do that. So what we do is we celebrate birthdays. We celebrate any holiday you can justifiably celebrate. I think this year we did Arbor Day. Any reason to bring happiness and celebration into the shelter, we take advantage of. In addition to that, we have a lot of school-age children. So we work very closely with the McKinney-Vento program to make sure that when children are coming to us, we're able to get them enrolled in a school that's safe. Because oftentimes abusers know where their children have been going to school, and that's a direct shot to where they can find them. So getting them enrolled in school, and then being able to provide things like homework help nights. On Fridays, we break our Nintendo Wii, and we have video game nights and movies, and just really any reason that we can find to embrace youthfulness and fun, we take advantage of.
So, because it's a confidential location and a lot of people may not be familiar with Catholic Charities Shelter itself, talk about what it's like, the rooms, the environment, the playroom I know we have for the children. What is all of that we have available for the people that are coming to us?
Yes, so as you mentioned, we are a confidential location. So when survivors are accepted into our program, we take very seriously that we have them meet us at a safe location. From the safe location, we'll bring them to the shelter. We'll gather their initial intake information, then bring them into the actual shelter. And it's wonderful because right when you open the door, you're welcomed to a large kitchen that's filled with windows that let in all kinds of natural light. And it's a kitchen set that has 2 different kitchen areas, so 2 families can be cooking at once. There's a large island that can sit at least 10 people. There's 5 other tables in the kitchen area where families can sit, and right next to there is our playroom. And it has toys that are donated from the community. There's a TV in there. We can play cartoons. It's a hub where children can kind of go in there, really enjoy playing while mom can sit outside, keep an eye on the child, and work on things that she needs to work on, resume building, job hunting, things like that, without having to constantly worry about keeping an eye on their child because they know that they're safe. In addition to that, we have a living room, a large living area with a couch. We've got laptops, a large TV, and then we have 10 rooms and 5 bathrooms. So every client that comes to us, whether it's an individual person or a family, they get their own room. The reason being is because they came from such a traumatic background. We want to be able to give them their own private space where they can shut the door and begin to heal. The last thing we want is any issues with roommates or things like that. So we very much value giving them their own space. The rooms are fantastic. We make sure that there's bedding, there's toiletries, and really meet the needs of whatever the clients have. If they have to come and they don't have shoes, we have shoes we'll provide them with. Doing anything we can to make it feel like they're walking into a home-like atmosphere.
And I know we have some rooms that also connect for larger families so they can be still together. And Catholic Charities will take children up to 18 to keep families together. So it can be an interesting array of young kids and teenagers and others. And so how does the staff navigate all of those different challenges?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we do have 2 sets of rooms where, similar to a hotel, there's a door that connects them and you can open it up, so we can host a family of up to 10. And as you noted, we have a variety of ages, and it's really kind of up to our child advocate who has developed programming that targets different age groups and what their needs are at that specific time. Working with someone who's 17 is going to look a lot different than working with someone who's 7. And so we've done significant research and have evidence-based methods through which we actually work with the children. We do a lot of SMART goal planning. But also we do a lot of teaching what healthy relationships look like, some kind of preventative work to really make sure that we're setting the stage where those children don't enter a cycle of violence when they grow up as well.
And I know so much of what we try to do is build back up their dignity. The abusers frequently, strip them of all of that dignity and try to take everything under their own control, which you have experienced. And so how do the staff pay attention to that, where they're able to try and build people back up and instill that confidence that they can take those next steps to improve their lives?
We really work to try to help them identify their own strengths and build that up internally. There's been countless times where we'll sit with clients and we'll tell them, you can do this. We believe in you. And we're just met with a blank stare. They say, I hear you, but I don't really believe you right now. And it's our job to look them in the eye and say, that's fine, but I'm going to keep saying it until you do. So just understanding where they're at when they come in, and then using that as the catalyst for where we're going to try to help them build from.
And do you share your own personal story with them as they are trying to navigate and to show them an example of like where you were and where you've come since that 5-year-old little girl?
It really depends. Now, as the director, I don't do as much face-to-face work with the clients as the advocates do. But I will say that a number of our advocates have some kind of personal connection to survivorhood, to domestic violence. And absolutely, we find that sharing helps build the trust between clients and staff. I've absolutely shared my story a few times, really kind of when it comes up, but then also we're a little hesitant too, because we want to make sure that the focus remains on them. It's very easy in conversations to identify, well, I've been through that too, me too, but we want to make sure that we're helping them in their journey at this point.
So you mentioned that your mom was able to move on and become a real estate agent, go to college. Have you seen other types of success stories like that even in your time here at Catholic Charities?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. And I have to say, those are the stories that keep us coming back to work even after the difficult days. We've seen women go through college in the shelter. We've seen women receive scholarships while they were in the shelter. Our main goal is to make sure that when people leave our program, that they're leaving to safe, stable, secure housing. And we have a pretty impressive success rate in doing that. So the biggest successes that I consider are the people who have really struggled and they have credit that's kept them from being able to get housing. They struggle to have consistency in jobs because abusers will go to jobs. They'll mess things up in that regard, because if you have financial independence, then they lose a piece of that power and control. And so success is gauged in so many different ways, but seeing families leave the shelter, keys in hand, to their own place that they know is going to be violence-free is exactly why we continue to come back to work every day.
And that is such a key component of the work that we do, having a housing advocate, because basically they come to us with only the clothes on their backs most of the time. They have very little. The abusers have kept control of everything, and so they really are starting from the ground level. And so talk a little bit about how that housing advocate is able to navigate all of those challenges of not enough money for rent or an application fee or that.
Yeah, so I would say housing is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to survivors being able to find their own independence. And we run into those barriers often, whether it be the limited availability of affordable housing, whether it be that the survivor hasn't worked in quite some time and apartments or houses want to see consistency in income. They want you to show up to the table with first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit, and prove you're making 3 times the rent monthly. All of these stipulations, which just add barrier after barrier after barrier to survivors that are already facing just insurmountable issues, it helps to have somebody like our housing advocate who is so well versed in not only housing laws, but also the multitude of programs around Omaha that help survivors like our own. There's a federal act called the Violence Against Women Act that affects women that are trying to get out of leases that they share with their abuser. Having someone who knows that information and can navigate that is essential in being able to address the variety of barriers we run into. But also, we're unique in that we're able to also provide the financial assistance to cover some of those things like first month's rent and security deposit. Just last week, we were able to provide $1,800 to a survivor that successfully moved to her own residence, which helped cover first month's rent and that security deposit. And as she left, she had a cart full of new household belongings from our community reintegration program. And those are the types of things that we like to see. But without access to financial resources and things like that, I mean, survivors wouldn't see the success that we're seeing now.
So a lot of people think domestic violence is only physical violence. Talk about some of the other aspects of that power and control that you see that play into different types of domestic violence.
Absolutely. If there was one narrative around domestic violence that I could change, it would be the idea that they haven't hit me yet, so I must not being abused. That is far from the truth. Abusers thrive off of power and control, and power and control manifests its way in so many ways other than just physical violence. Emotional and verbal abuse are just as harmful as physical abuse. You might not see the visible bruises, but the harm that it causes is deep. It's traumatic. So, I mean, you see abusive behaviors in financial abuse, abusers who will go to jobs and make sure they ruin a person's ability to maintain employment. You'll see things through minimizing and blaming, sexual coercion, the use of children, as I mentioned in my own story. There's a variety of ways: intimidation, harassment, stalking, things like that you don't have to be physically hit to be abused. And that's one of the things that I wish more people knew, is there's not a threshold you have to pass to qualify as an abuse victim. If you feel like you're being verbally and mentally abused, then that very well may be the case, and there is help for you out there.
And so people who might be listening or watching this, what would be their next step? How do they get in touch with Catholic Charities to talk about their situation and learn more about the help that we can offer?
Yeah, so we have a 24/7 hotline. So it's open any time of the day for anyone to call. Our hotline number is 402-558-5700. And when you call that line, you'll get access to an advocate who can help talk you through whatever you're experiencing. If you're not sure what's going on in your life is abuse, call an advocate, describe what's going on, and they can help connect you with resources to resolve some of the issues that you're going through. Whether that be, offering shelter at our location, or connecting you with legal resources, a therapist, whatever the situation may be, there's always someone out there that's willing to listen and willing to help.
So what would you say in summing all of this up, your life experience, where you are now, how do you put that all together to keep coming back day in and day out?
I think one of the most detrimental parts of domestic violence is it leaves people with a sense of hopelessness. And I remember feeling that. I remember seeing that reflected in my mother's eyes growing up. And it makes me feel so personally compelled to be able to look at someone who, in all instances, feels like they have no reason to continue with hope, and to reach a hand out and say, we're here for you. All of those barriers you think are insurmountable, we can help you get through those. So in being a hope provider, it helps remedy the trauma I felt as a child, but also fills my cup in seeing these survivors really get to realize their full potential and realize that they have so much more value than just being a victim.
That is an incredible story, and it is incredible work that you and the advocates do day in and day out. And so we are proud to share all of this with our audience, and I want to thank you so much for all the work that you do and for being with us on Inspiring Hope today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
As we close today's episode, I hope you have a new appreciation for the work of Catholic Charities. Domestic violence is a difficult topic, yet it is so important for us to talk about how we help break the cycle of abuse and give families a fresh start without fear, coercion, and abuse in their lives. Our programs help to build survivors back up and give them the dignity and self-confidence to find a path forward for themselves and their children with healing and hope for a better future. So many times when I've done presentations about the work of Catholic Charities, someone will come up to me afterwards and tell me that our shelter saved their lives and the lives of their children. When they spoke with me, I would never have guessed that DV was a part of their background. Yet so many have endured the pain and suffering of abusive relationships. It impacts people of all walks of life. Catholic Charities was there for them all those years ago, and we are still here, offering the light and love of Jesus Christ with healing hands and hearts. Maybe some of you listening are in an abusive relationship or know someone who is. Reach out to our 24/7 DV Crisis Hotline at 402-558-5700. Our staff is ready to help you take those next steps to end the violence. Maybe you have been inspired by this episode to help us assist others out of DV. Visit Catholic Charities' website at ccomaha.org to learn how you can donate or purchase items for survivors from our wish list. This podcast is about hope, which is critical to those going through a crisis. Knowing that they are not alone and there are people who care about them is so important to their mental and physical well-being. God has inspired us to share His love with others and offer them the dignity and hope they deserve as His beloved children. Thank you for joining us today. If this conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, share, and stay connected. If you want to learn more about all the programs of Catholic Charities, visit our website at ccomaha.org. Until next time, keep inspiring hope. God bless.